Oops, I want to go to the big screen. Okay. So thank you again for joining me for another Rock Your Life with Nora Finch episode. I'm here with brother Andy Starnes, who I'm going to talk about in a minute, from North Carolina. Right, Andy? Okay.
Yep.
So this show is inspired by my 20 plus years in holistic wellness and my self-defense training in Krav Maga. For those of you who haven't listened to me before, I specialize in first responders who are new to the industry in mindset training. So I set up customized holistic plans to help you survive and thrive in life. YouTube is where you'll find a lot of my information, and you can contact me for free consults if you want. So as far as this episode goes, we are going to cover, I wanted to really spend a lot more time talking about restoring our faith in ourselves and humanity and source, whatever that means to you. So if we are using that word God that does not resonate with you, you can exchange it for something else or whatever you would like. That's what I'm talking about. This is what's going to get interesting with Andy and I. Okay. So, finding great philosophies, there's different things out there. Okay. Belief systems, not just Buddhism, which I would talk about, or Stoicism or free thinking or whatever, an organized religion, whatever, Catholicism, Christianity, same things, right? Kind of. That support, I feel like support mental health and whole health well-being. So, okay. So what we are going to talk about is restoring our faith. And then also, if we have time, for steps for facilitating change in fire culture, first responder culture, and on and on and on I could go. But what I wanted to talk about first in my intro and just say, simply, I wanted to read from one of my books, This Thing Called You by Ernest Holmes. That's one of my favorites. And this one, Prayer by Ernest Holmes. And you can tear out the pages and all of that. So I love that. Okay, so what I wanted to say, a couple of just clips. So you, like all others, are seeking the joy of living. You wish to be needed, to be loved, to be included in the great drama of life. This urge is in every individual. It is in everything. In some way which you know not of, through some process which never reveals its face, life has entered into you, and with it the irresistible impulse to create. Divine intelligence has willed it so, nor you, nor any other person, nor all the wit, science, or philosophy of man, nor the inspiration of saints or sages can change one bit of it any more than man can arrest the eternal circuits of time, the revolutions of the planets, or the desire of the fledgling to leave its nest, soar, and sing. So what I just wanted to say about that, because this is also about not only restoring faith, but believing we can change, help change. Okay, I'm gonna try to talk slowly, but this is a little bit long, but not too long. Okay, Andy?
Okay.
It's not every day you come across someone you just meet that you can spill your guts to and lay your life and be so comfortable with. There's no fear of judgment in someone's presence that just seems to hold space for you. Mr. Andy Starnes is one of those people, a leader without even trying, very much loved, respected, and adored, not only for his craft, but also being the founder of your thermal imaging company, but also for your ministry. While Christianity in particular doesn't always resonate with everyone, including myself, because of my negative perception of its strict rules growing up, I learned to understand the roots of what it means to be spiritually connected in life's sense of order in my own way. Me, Buddhism, and Christianity weren't forced on me, but after getting so offended because of my pastor's unloving statement that it was basically wrong for somebody to be gay. Like, if you're gay, you're going to hell. Like, that's all that it was. And then I just like shut down, because that to me was just not very loving, right? Just one example. And I don't know much about Baptist sorts of things, but I know that people have said it's very strict. So it wasn't forced upon by me, but I definitely didn't want to disappoint my stepmom. So I continued to go. But to me, that wasn't being loving. So I recognize that point as thinking for myself. And so my support systems became my music and other alternative types of outlets. But it is really funny looking back at that period of time, reading my Hellraiser book Do you know? Do you know who wrote that? Hellraiser, Clive Barker. It's a horror book, and I used to read it under the table at Sunday school class. It's just
my wife was big into horror movies, so yeah.
Okay. Anyway, it's just funny though that I did that kind of stuff. Not saying it was respectful. I'm just saying that like I didn't have the balls to stand up, you know. So basically, I just kept going. So fast forwarding. The negative attitude, I'm not saying it was a good thing, but as a result, I really shut down. So even that word God or pray or something, like I would just shut down. If you started spitting scripture, saying scripture, like I just shut down. So I know what it's like to be that person who it doesn't resonate with until I started reading these types of books. And so obviously with age and stuff and different things had changed. And so, but what I wanted to say is everybody has this story. Okay. So I found my way. I found these different ways to help center me. I always knew what my mission was and what I wanted to do in life. But that just part didn't resonate with me. So as an adult, I learned to take different things. And now I'm not so offended, right, by using that word. And so even when I would use, because Ernest Holmes uses that word, uses God in a lot of his stuff, I would just replace it, or I would just I wouldn't take it so seriously, you know? And so we would just say, you know, I found different spiritual teachers, but not necessarily Jesus. So that's why when I came at you and I said, how strict you are, do you swear, do you do all these sorts of things before when we very first talked, because I didn't know. And so with that all being said, I feel like we need your ministry. You will be people that do resonate with you, people that do not, because obviously I do still, and first responder or not. And I want to bring you to the West Coast, even that means virtually, because I think there are probably people that don't know about you. And I think definitely Sacramento culture, I wouldn't say they have a huge spiritual following here and just how California people are. So your love and your patience and your compassion and everything that you do, which this does take time out of your busy schedule, you know, I do appreciate, but I want to share this side of you that not everybody gets to hear about. And I know that you love talking about it. Mm-hmm. And help us restore back our faith, which I think people that are losing, and the battle, whether you believe it's against the dark or not. You don't have to believe in Satan to know there's darkness, you know, or evil, mm-hmm. whatever that you want to believe in. And this is also helping us unite as a country. So first responders or veterans, as I've talked about before are reasons to help us lead us into change. So that is pretty much what I wanted to say about you and about what we're doing today.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I don't deserve kind words in that way, but I will tell you that the thing that my wife gets on me for is self-deprecating humor or not taking credit for things. But, you know, I learned a long time ago, and I didn't wrap my head around it until probably in my mid-40s, that you never judge a philosophy or belief system by those who choose to abuse it. There are bad people in everything. There are bad people in ministry. There are bad people at the gym. There are bad people in marriage. There's bad people in, you know, look at police, fire, EMS, the world I'm in. There's bad people in that. But that doesn't mean that the whole thing is bad. And I think a lot of times, especially society today, they label groups by the small percentage that it goes out to destroy it. And my dad he's more of a statistics guy, and he studied Deming and a lot of other ones. He goes, Dad, he'd always tell me, son, there's 1 to 3% of every organization's out to destroy it. I'm like, where do you get that number? He wouldn't tell me, but probably not smart enough to understand it. But statistically, there are people that just do the wrong thing in a lot of ways, and doesn't mean we shouldn't love them or pray for them or be present for them. But that's, you know, your experience is not uncommon to a lot of people's experience. Neither is mine. I had a lot of bad experiences in my own faith. And what I've learned is you don't follow man, because man will disappoint you. There'll be bad pastors. There'll be bad teachers. Be a lot of bad people, and they'll hurt you and they'll cause damage. And they'll cause you to lose hope in the things that you value, whether it's your profession, whether it's your family, whether it's your children, whether it's your country, or like me, you know, I've lost faith many times in a lot of things, especially like the fire service, because I've always loved it. And my pastor said a line years ago, stuck with me. He said, they didn't steal your joy. You gave it to them. You let them get in your head and paint a false picture, because whether we were young or that's all we knew, it damaged us. And it damaged the trust, whether it's marriage, you know, like my wife was married before and had a bad marriage. And it took a long time for her to trust me, even, you know, so that's something that restoration comes through, you know, earning it, you know, human beings wise. But when my faith, I had to learn that I could never earn what I have. Never. And that's what grace is you're getting a gift you don't deserve. Mercy is you're being forgiven for something you do deserve. And a lot of people want grace, they want love and forgiveness, but they don't want accountability. They don't want to be accountable for anything, whether it's right, wrong, or whatever the world wants to do it. But my version is to read the Bible as it is, look at history and look at people, and realize that when Jesus died on the cross, there was a crook right next to him who never did a good thing in his whole life. And at the last minute, he said, remember me when you come to your kingdom. And Jesus let him in. He let him in, the guy who never did a good thing for anybody. And as a pastor said, imagine this guy walking into heaven. They go, who are you? How'd you get here? He said I could come. Does he know the doctrine of salvation? Did he follow all the rules? No, he didn't. He said, can I come? And he read his heart, not his mind, not his denomination, not his certificate, not any of that garbage that the world spits at us. He read his heart, and his heart was genuine. And in the end, that's what's going to be judged. It's not your certificate, not your occupation, it was your heart. Did you do everything with all your heart? Did you love? Did you forgive? Or did you hold hatred and bitterness and cynicism against people? Because in my belief, if I don't forgive somebody, he's going to hold that against me. That I'm basically condemning myself.
We're not supposed to be crying again today.
We ain't got there yet. Wait.
Huh? What'd you say? We didn't get to it yet?
Not yet. There's a point. The point to this is that people will hurt people. It's done throughout history. It hasn't changed. The cake is still the same. The frosting has changed in the world. We got different buildings. We got different technology. We got nicer clothes. We got life is faster and all this stuff's going on. But because of that, we are more aware of things, and marriages are at a higher divorce rate, abuse, violence, all that stuff's rampant. And if you just look at that, your whole attitude is dark. But if you look at things, you look at your life, you look at your gifts, you look at your blessings, and you go, I have a wife in there that loves me as flawed as I am, you know, with the double hot dog in the back of my head here and the double chin and no hair. And I have a daughter who I don't deserve, who loves me. I have a job for 25 years that I've had that has provided for my family. And I have a second occupation. I still have my health. And as messed up as the world is, I have people that actually listen to me and value that. And for that, I am beyond thankful that I'm able to contribute in any way, shape, or form. And now, in the first time in my life, I'm actually able to give back, not tithing, give like way more than I could ever imagine. And I'm able to write checks, make phone calls, call people, pull favors. And to me, when he says, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing when you're doing gifts in secret, the most powerful thing I have learned is when I'm able to help somebody and I don't get nothing from it, no gift, no certificate, no trophy, no Facebook, you're the top diamond Facebook fan, but I can lay my head down at night and go, that guy, his marriage is still intact. His mortgage, he got his mortgage paid this month and he didn't have the money. That guy got to go out with his kid tonight because I let him slide out of the station for 2 hours and see his kid's ball game. That's what matters, is those small random acts of taking care of people for no other reason than the fact that you know in your heart what you said in the beginning is that little bird meant to sing and create. Well, you're meant to do more than accumulate stuff in a house and have a podcast and me have social media following. We're meant to help people and bring them to a point. Like, if this is my ceiling, this should be their floor. And that's what matters. And I don't think people realize that. I think they're just so focused on what we have. Like I was telling you at the beginning, the to-do list, the business of the world and all that. And that's the devil, that's the evil, that's whatever you want to call it. But that's distracting you from the very fact that you're meant to do something more than that. And don't get caught up if you helped 100 people or you helped 10. Did you make a difference each and every day with somebody? Did you do something that benefited them in some way, that whether the world knows about it or not, that you were who you were meant to be? And I think that's what the world has forgotten. And if you want to restore faith and all that in people and all that, this world has got to quit trying to attack everybody for everything, for offense, for that, forever, and realize that, this world was created. You can argue about it scientifically and all that stuff. But when I look at a watch, I think of a watch designer. When I look at a car, somebody built that car. And when I look at a human being and all the intricacies of that one single strand of DNA has over 500,000 pages of information in it. There is no way that we could come out of goo to you. There's no way. That's like saying a windstorm goes through a junkyard and create a 747. It ain't happening. And I believe more than I know, and I take faith in that I will never understand every intricacy of everything in this world, but I will understand this, that if I don't do what I'm called to do, then the devil wins. When good people don't do what they're supposed to do, the world stays dark. And you can believe what you want to do. We live in a country that allows you to choose whatever you want to do. But I choose to believe in Christ, and I choose to do what he did, which was he came down and he served. He didn't say, serve me. He took a beating. He got betrayed. He got spat on, and he got nailed to a cross, and then he stayed there. No other leader in history did that. And for me to know that a king came down, took my place, the chief of sinners, as Paul says, then what should I do? I should love people like he did, whether they love me back or not, whether they believe the way I do or not. And God will change your heart. Not me. Not this guy. I ain't smart enough. God will change your heart, not me. God will heal the past of what you were talking about.
Okay. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. But it left some other questions. We need to do our own coaching, because I do want to ask you why you always say that you feel undeserving.
Because I read, and the closer you get to God, the more you're aware of your own flaws and sinfulness. But it's not a bad thing. It's just saying, I know in my heart I'm inherently selfish, right? I am. When a baby cries, the baby wants its way. There's nothing wrong with admitting that. But it also says that I have to stay on a path that keeps me from going.
But doesn't he? But also, if he says what you believe, if he says that you are perfect and not, why are you looking at them as flaws? You only think that they are flaws. Like, I haven't heard.
I can't have a perfect thought. I can't have a perfect day. I'm going to have ups and downs. I'm going to have anxiety. Yeah. I'm going to be depressed. I'm going to get angry. Yeah. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to sin. I'm going to say bad things when I shouldn't. Do you think that a Christian, because you become a Christian, that you are now perfect and you live this easy life?
But I would think God or whatever, like, views you as, those should not be. That's what I'm saying. You are considering them flaws. You are the one defining that as a sin. Like, what is it that you do that you think is so bad or so flawed that, like you said, you need to read the Bible to make yourself not do those things? Like, that's what I'm confused about, I think.
I think any person who's honest with themselves realizes the amount of darkness that's within them. Most people are not honest with themselves.
Okay, what's the darkness to you? Wanting to
any person that has
jealousy, like jealousy.
driving down the road and somebody cuts you off and you have a horrendously bad thought about that person. That's not nice.
But I don't think that stuff.
You cut somebody off in traffic when you're in a hurry, and then you get mad when somebody cuts you off. You know, it could be random, what we consider little things. One of my most favorite books was Yes, I've Sinned, Lord, but I have several good excuses. Right? You know, we don't look at the little stuff. We always look at the big stuff like murder and cheating on your spouse and all that stuff. But nobody looks at these little things that are done to people every day that are mean.
But I don't think that's me. But I don't think that for you to have a thought like that means that that's bad or that's
it's human.
You didn't pull them out of their car and beat their ass. Like I don't know. I guess we could go on and on and on. But
I went to anger management for that, so I don't have that problem.
Okay. Maybe that's for another show. But let's make sure though that I do want to get to this part of we need to develop a system, maybe raising my hand. How has God, I want you to talk about, and it doesn't have to be miracle because mine isn't a miracle story, but I got a really good story for you. How do you feel that God has helped you in your life? This is to the person who's like, God's never fucking helped me. What has he done for me? All he shows me is this and this and this. We can't change anything in culture. Look at what's going on. This is what, you know what I mean? Like there's always like, what is that person who's like, or going to a call, you can't explain to me, I don't believe in past lives, things, why that shit happened. Like, what is this type of person? If you could tell them you don't believe in, having a blessed life, God is helping you. God, source, universe. But if the person were to look at their life and be like, how has God, Andy, how has God helped you, really?
I would ask them, how has God not helped you? Too many people are just focused on what they don't have. They're focused on the bad, this, that, and the other, and they think God's Santa Claus. You know, I prayed for this, it didn't happen. Well, I wanted a pony as a kid. I didn't get it. I mean, my parents aren't evil, right? So I think the problem is that what you want? Is that what you need? Is that what he had in mind for you? I don't know. I don't have that. I don't have the creator's mindset. I can tell you this, that it is no way that I can look at my life and say that God didn't have a hand in it, because I should have been dead, because I did stupid stuff as a teenager, driving too fast, drinking, driving, all that bad stuff. You know, I did all that. And then the mistakes I made as a firefighter in a fire, I should have been dead. You know,
what was a mistake you made?
I've stepped out in traffic with a tractor trailer going by. You know how many firefighters are killed every year on the interstate? They're more killed on that than there are in the fire ground. You know, I've battled anxiety and depression and had bad thoughts about things I shouldn't have, and I'm still here. You know how many firefighters take their own lives every year? More than they can count. They're not even tracked accurately. Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance is the only one I know that's tracking them. In the last 4 weeks, one department in Florida had 2 suicides, same department. Columbus, Ohio had 2 suicides, the same department.
In the last month?
In the last month. You think that's coincidence that these people are taking their own lives?
No, there's no coincidence.
No, there's not. I mean, cumulative stress and all that stuff, all the things that I look at in this world, you can look at dark, you can look at light, you can look at however you want. But in my life, there's no way that some guy from Union County, North Carolina, in the middle of nowhere could be where I'm at today and doing the things I'm doing without God involved in it. Because the very fact that I have a business that's successful and that people reach out to is because something bad happened to me. You realize that, right?
Yeah, when you're injured.
Okay, so I had that. All right, so you go back even further and you go, okay, I had failed relationships before my wife because I was seeking the wrong type of person, the wrong kind of world. And I finally, honestly, this is what I did before I met my wife. I said, God, I'm done. I've done it my way. Send me who you want. Very next day was my wife. And my dad said, what do you think about this girl? I said, I'm scared. I think she can hurt me. He said, what do you mean by that? I said, she smiles, she's happy, and she's independent, and she's strong. I hadn't met nobody like that. You know, and that was in 2003.
Did you always think, with your experiences with women, did you just always attract, or like, did you think negatively about them, or did you think anything of it? What did you think of them in general?
No, I was a kid bullied and beat up all through middle school, and then got into working out to try to get even with people who hurt me, and then was picked on and never had a girlfriend, this, that, and the other. And then when I got to college, community college, and you blossom, as they say, all of a sudden women are interested in me, and they're interested in me for the wrong reasons. So, you know, I just wanted attention, and that's the wrong kind of attention. And it I always say you're feeling the hole inside of yourself with physical attention when you need far more than that.
Right.
And that's a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. It's going to bleed through, and it's not going to give you fulfillments like material things or anything else. You keep doing it more and more, and it ends up being a bottomless pit. And you end up more broken, and people betray you and leave you and use you. Okay.
So you were Christian, but you didn't practice during that time or praying?
A car sits in a parking spot. That makes it a car because it's a car. It sits in a parking spot. I can sit in a parking spot. Doesn't make me a car. I can sit in a church. Doesn't make me a Christian. I had done everything I was supposed to do. I went to church on Sunday. I did confirmation and all that stuff. You're a Christian on paper, not in practice. I don't think I was a Christian until I was 31 years old.
So until that day, like you said, send me somebody, or was it that or something else?
No, I don't think it was even then. I think that my wife and I still didn't get it until we moved here in 2006, and we went on a little spiritual retreat, and we knew all about religion, rules and regulations and all that. We didn't know anything about relationship. That's what was missing. A lot of churches, you know, like you said, there's rules this, rules that, all that, but never knew anything about, you know, having a personal relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And you're like, well, how do you do that? And you're like, for me, when my wife and I realized that, and we rededicated our lives, we planted 2 trees in the front yard to remember that. And now we have a 3rd tree, just the Emma tree, because my tree, my wife's tree, my daughter's tree, just to symbolize, hey, planted something, right? And that was our starting over date. And I'm thankful he allows U-turns. But my wife and I got together, and no reason I should have somebody that loves me that way, number one. Number two, she said she never wanted to have children. Okay. And I found out later because she didn't trust me or men in general. And we were walking one day, and I tell her about a guy who got caught cheating on his wife, who was a friend of mine, and how it shocked me. And she said, all men do it. It's only a matter of time for them to do it to me.
Story.
Yeah. And I realized why, because I lived one way at work and another way at home. So I was 2 people. That's called a hypocrite. Right. And I learned that I cannot be 2 people. A double-minded man you can't be. It'll tear you apart. So I had to start changing. And to me, that's like when the sculptor takes out the chisel and he looks at the big block of marble, he sees something in it. And it doesn't hurt the marble, but God takes out the chisel and goes, you don't need that. And you go, ow, you don't need that. You know, and it's a slow process. But
so the relationship is really what was like the catalyst. But here we go again, because you said it. Why do you say no one should love me like that? Again, the deserving, not deserving.
I'll answer your question with a question. Why does the word God hurt you so much?
It doesn't anymore.
No, but it did.
Because
the reason is
non-acceptance, non-acceptance, not unconditional love. I didn't feel.
But something happened,
or for somebody else.
Something happened to you that created a bad experience that left an emotional or mental, whatever scar on you from that experience. Right? That happens to a lot of people in relationships and religion and whatnot. And you go, well, why do you say that? Why do you say that? Well, I lived as a little kid with a big head and gangly body and got beat up and picked on and was never popular and all that my whole youth existence. And then all of a sudden, you know, you catch up or whatever, and people look at you differently, but in your head, you're still that little kid with no confidence, no security. And you know,
so why does she love me? Yeah. Why does she love me? Like, what does she see?
No different no different than a woman who's had bad relationships and doesn't, you know, trust a man and finally meets a good one and thinks, well, why is this one good? Right. I mean, we base our present and future expectations and relationships on past performance because that's what we know. And that's dangerous because that actually holds us back. Because what if that one person is that genuine person? What if they are the real deal and you don't give them a chance because no, you're not going to hurt me again. You know, and that's what we do. We guard ourselves when we're hurt. We don't let anybody back in. Firefighters are the worst at that. You know, we'll save everybody else. But when we had problems, no, you can't talk to me. I'm not going to talk about that because I'll be perceived as weak, the negative stigma. I get, you know, my job won't help me, or, you know, there'll be some negative consequence. The whole point is nobody wants to be vulnerable. Nobody. And when you're vulnerable, in my opinion, there's running into a burning building brave, and there's being brave enough to share your wounds. Because when you open up your wounds, guess what it does for someone else? It
allows them
to do what?
Share,
because what did you just do by sharing something deeply personal that impacted? Not shallow surface level conversations. When you say it with passion and with your voice shakes, it causes them to feel a certain amount of emotional connection.
I love it. I love it when men do it because it's such a cultural taboo.
Well, whether it's taboo or not, to me, it is the way to connect to people.
Of course.
When I teach something that most people consider as dry, like thermal imaging, I make it personal. You know, there's 3 points in teaching. The last point I always use, it has to be experientially relevant, personally connecting to that person's life. If it doesn't, then it's nothing but a bunch of dry information. And when you tie that in and you make that connection with that person, that's where learning occurs. That's where growth occurs. That's where relationships are built.
But that's how closeness also, and people get fearful of that and getting attached and all that. But I think it's but I think it's very enriching, like to go out in life, you know, that you built those few relationships that you can hopefully count on one hand.
Well, I got more than one hand now. I'm thankful for that.
That's good for you.
But I can tell you, if you're not brave enough to be vulnerable, you never will have any depth. You will have surface level relationships. They'll be Facebook friends only, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And they won't be any. You got people that you could call right now that bail you out of jail, that would come to your house to help you. Those are the people what I call real friends. Not the people that, you know, that like you on Facebook or wrote a good review, big whoop-de-doo-dah. I'm talking about, you know, they flew to your family member's funeral and they didn't have to. They didn't have to.
Well, those are the tests, though, to see if that's important to you or not. I mean, some people, I don't know, relationships and all that sort of everything, you know, just like you said, though, what did you say? Don't trust man. But if you have that kind of a logic, though, like losing faith in people and good people and why you can't count on them and all that sort of stuff is they're not going to care.
See, the difference is I don't trust mankind. I look at the person and say, what makes this person different and unique than the person on the street? And if this person, in the first 5 minutes, I can figure out who somebody is. Are they driven? Or are they called? Are they, you know, if they're driven, they're all about themselves and materialism and, you know, power and greed and whatever. If they're called, they do things differently. And you'll pick it up in the first 5 minutes in their behavior, how they talk to people, how they treat people. And some people may fool you, but in general, there are two types. And the called people are the ones that, whether they believe in God or not, God put it in their heart. They're value focused. They love to give. They'll open a door. They'll do some random act of kindness. They have an altruistic type of nature that they can't explain. Now, where do you think that come from? Some science experiment? No. Why would someone, let me ask you another question. Why would someone who's been hurt really bad by people in general all of a sudden decide, I can do two things? I can say all this bad stuff happened to me and I'll never let somebody hurt me again and I'll withhold from the world. Or I can use that and say, what if someone else has been through what I have been and they're scared to death to step out, and your story inspires them to actually live fearlessly and do something that most people don't do, which is love, share, forgive, do all of that, you know? And I think, you know, people don't realize this. Forgiveness sets the prisoner free, and the prisoner is yourself, because you lock yourself away from the world and you have a gift, and it's meant to be shared. Gifts are opened and delivered and shared and enjoyed. They're not kept in a box in a dark place where no one can ever touch them, see them, or enjoy them. And people are gifts, and they all have something. People don't realize it, whether it's the smallest child to the oldest person. They all have a gift. They all have something that's worth sharing. And I think that when you withhold that, darkness wins. Mm-hmm. And that's not a good thing to do.
Okay, so let's come back to that, because I need to give this example for people to hear. And then I do want to get into this in fire service, because the two people I want to talk about, I know they are really unique to what they're offering, but maybe you can add more about how somebody listening to this can find it. Okay, so my example of how God has helped me. So if I'm going to use God or universe or source, okay, number one thing, first and foremost, somebody wants me to help first responders. Okay, somebody does, because every time in my last job, and I'm becoming more powerful, let me just say this, because stuff happens within 5 minutes. Every time when I was working, I'd be all, what are the firefighters doing? They would drive by, or one would come in. So there was always an instance where they keep showing up. They always are driving by on my street. There's some guy who sometimes has not constant heart attacks, but he would have stuff going on. It's funny because they bring that huge ass truck. What's the huge one? The one with the water? Not the water. The one with the What?
I'll let you finish, then I'll tell you what it is.
The long ass motherfucker one with the dude in the back.
That's called a tiller.
A what? Tinder?
A tiller. A ladder truck.
Okay.
It's a tiller.
Ladder
it's a
truck.
tiller.
Okay, I should know
two
it.
Drivers. It has a driver in the front and a driver in the rear, so they can turn it and fit down streets that no one can fit down.
Okay, so they bring that one with our tiny ass one lane street. But anyway, so I get constant things. But this is the most important story, that it is not a miracle, but it's just like I am being helped and I'm always protected. Okay, long story, long short. This was maybe 6 years ago. Basically, doing facials, the skincare rep called me and said, Nora, there's a guy going around Sacramento sexually assaulting estheticians. That's what I'm called, licensed esthetician. Sexually assaulting estheticians. His name is Tony. Did he make an appointment with you or whatever? Yeah, he's coming in at 12. She's like, he's booking an appointment every 15 minutes at each salon and saying he wants a back wax. Okay, so that's where I feel the angel came down, because I don't talk to her regularly. She just out of nowhere said this. So anyway, we did find out about it. He showed up, got the license plate number or whatever it is, had been doing this or whatever to 9 other girls, whether he's flashing them or whatever it is. But I just thought, while it was a message to me to keep doing what I'm doing in self-defense or whatever, I just thought it was really ironic. Like, really, you're going to, like, why is this showing up for me, that somebody's going to attack some like self-defense instructor, kind of a thing. So for me, I would definitely say that's a very obvious example of I was not involved. There was nothing in my mind. I don't feel like that I created that lesson or that scenario, but that I was protected. I wasn't meant for something to happen.
You know what the definition of coincidence is, don't you?
Definition? Well, I don't believe in them, because it's set up. What's the definition?
God working anonymously. Because people believe it's coincidence or happenstance, and it isn't. And I don't. The whole thing is just, there's no way that things like that can happen randomly. And that's,
yeah, why? And then I just kept going further and further, because like, if he was stalking me, because my friend had said weeks earlier he came to my old place and either she gave him my card or something. So maybe he got the card and whatever. But the point is that was some crazy shit. So, yes. So, yeah, I'm protected. So I wanted to share that story because this is what I will say is when I was younger and I looked at things as it was a coincidence or that was weird, I never knew how it could benefit me, like life's connections and things like that. And then when I started reading those books like The Power of the Subconscious Mind, and you see how powerful you are, that's when I started to get into that stuff. And that's how I'm able to be so positive. Because if I've made all of these things in my life happen, I know all of this is going to be successful with first responders. You know what I mean? I already consider it. I am doing my life's mission work. So whatever it ends up becoming from it, like I know how to help get us to these different places and stay positive. Like that's every day, rinse and repeat.
If you like that kind of book, you need to read the book "The Gift of Fear" by Gavin DeBecker.
Oh, I have it, but I didn't finish it.
Whoa, you need to read that book because A, it never mentions God. B, he wrote the threat assessment protocol for the federal government. Basically, somebody writes a death threat, he determines whether or not they're valid or not, and he goes through stories like yours of, hey, I was walking down the street and had this intuition not to turn left down that alley. And then somebody else turned down that alley and they got killed. Or, you know, the stories of all these people having tragic things happening to them and they had a warning right before it happened. And you can call that whatever you want. Me, I call it the good Lord warning you or helping you. And some people listen and some people don't. I know I've spent most of my life not listening. Now I'm trying to listen. So I think a lot of people want to dismiss that kind of stuff, but there's something to it. Even Albert Einstein said, you know, prayer should be the next thing researched because there's a power there that scientists don't even understand. So I think people need to realize there is more to it than that even really people can understand.
Well, you're going to find out you don't even have to have one spiritual teacher. I mean, just listening to your inner self. But when you know those thoughts aren't your own, or you get words in like 3 words, like I don't talk like that, like you're getting it from somewhere. So when you divinely connect, and praying is a deep way to connect with yourself, and you can do it in your own way, people I think are going to be they'll understand a little bit more. So let's go into the mission calling thing, what the hell we're talking about. So I also do believe not everybody finds it, but we all have a unique calling or purpose. So as far as like, if you were going to give example in fire service, so the 2 people I was going to say, I think it's really their insight and their personal experience with, you know, Jeremy Sanders and Sean Duffy, like it's their personal insight and their experience, but in the ways that they want to change culture. But what is like, if you were going to be mentoring somebody or helping guide them, like how do they follow their heart? Would it be writing that list of maybe like all their strength traits and like what they see in culture that they want to change? Because I don't know how to say there's something as a unique firefighter. Like you learn the basics, but it's what you do afterwards and your training where you can develop all sorts of different styles. How can they stand out or find mission calling?
I hung out with Jeremy this weekend, by the way, or this past week. So he was at the event. So he came on the last day. So, you know, I've talked to him numerous times, but that was the first time we got to actually hang out. We went to lunch together and all that. So it was a really good experience. He's a solid human being. And he lives out what he says, which is honorable. For me, you know, a lot of people try to make people into something they're not. You know, they think, well, you should do this or you should do that. Well, how do you know that? Do you know that person? Do you know their heart? Do you know what they really want? I think the greatest mistake you can make is pushing someone down a path they don't want to go. Try doing that with a kid, getting them to play a sport they don't want to play, or, you know, trying to get somebody to work a job they don't want to work. They'll find out they're not happy. They don't feel called to do that. I think if you feel called to do something, you will never be happy unless you do that. Okay, let's define that though. Being called. If somebody doesn't really, they don't really know what. It's like a burning. I feel like it's a haunting. It's something that reoccurs. Something is telling them to do something, right? Maybe that's a good way. It's a gift given to that person. My opinion, my belief. God gave it to you. He put a passion in you, and you won't be happy or whole unless you're doing that specific purpose, and it will constantly be on your mind and your heart.
Yes.
Whether it's serving others, whether it's whatever it is. We all can't be ministers, teachers, carpenters, whatever. God's going to put something in each person's heart to do something, and that person will find that. And I think I'd heard this years ago. You take your passion plus the needs of the world, and you can line it up and pretty much find your calling, because your passion is something that comes from within, and that's not something you create. You know, it's something you find over time. You're like, wow, I really do feel like that's the path I need to go. When you're doing it, you act differently, you talk differently, you interact with people in a more personal way. It's not education and knowledge and wisdom, it's impact. It's, you know, there's relationships there's power in it. There's so much. When you hear a good instructor, I've heard this before, and it really resonates with me. And if you want to be a subject matter expert, you got to make the subject matter. In order to make the subject matter, it's got to matter to you, right? So for me, why I teach thermal imaging, it's kind of twofold. One, I'm showing them something that matters, that can hurt them or help them. And the other side of it is I believe in something most people can't see. And it's there. He's there. Infrared energy is there. You don't believe it's there. It's like Wile E. Coyote when he runs off the cliff and all of a sudden he stops and looks down and goes, huh, gravity does apply to me, and he falls. You know, the unseen does have an impact on all kinds of people. So a calling is something that's given to you, and sometimes it takes a lot of time for people to figure that out. I mean, look at the average male. The brain doesn't even fully mature till you're 26, but yet we can vote and go to war at 18. You know, so you know, I don't think men should be allowed to make decisions until they're 26. That's just my opinion, because I know how many mistakes I made prior to 26. And my dad said, from 17 to 22, I thought about taking you out every day, but you straightened up at 23, thank God. You know, so calling is something more than just something you can find in a book or a definition or a leader. And I think once you describe that to someone, they start you seeing what they want to do. You're more like empower them and put them on that path, and then equip them to do that. And if you can equip them to do that and encourage them, you get out of their way and then follow up, give them whatever it is. Is it encouragement? Is it wisdom? Is it advice? Is it maybe they need to be straightened up a little bit? I don't know. You know, you need a Paul, you need a Barnabas, you need a Timothy, you need a mentor, you need an encourager, and then you need somebody that you can turn around and share with and pour into that takes your place. And I think people, when they figure that out, that they have a gift, you know, like my daughter loves to create artwork. She's phenomenal at it. I mean, just does it. There's no way you sit down and just, you tell her to draw something, comes out of her head, boom. And you're like, how did you do that? She's 13. She didn't have any formal training. So that's a gift for me that I see in her. So I think people have different gifts, but to not use your gift can make you bitter, cynical, depressed, can make you feel lost. For firefighters, if you want to tie into firefighters, go to a fire department and you have a gift or a passion for something and they ignore you or they shut you out. That's where you see a lot of firefighters go down a dark road. But in my case, it led me down a good road because I couldn't use it in my own department. So what I do, I hung out with my dad and started doing it in other places. And I found out people liked it. People appreciated it. And I enjoyed it more than anything.
Well, I think when you're innovative like that too, that's the same thing with Jeremy. He's like, I couldn't find success in my own department. I think another way to describe that too is it brings inner fulfillment. And that's what I think brings lasting happiness. Because when you're serving or you're doing like within your calling, like there's nothing better than that, I think. So I think that's another good way, inner fulfillment.
There's a difference between success and significance, basically. You can be successful, but not be significant. You can have a big bank account and have an empty heart. You can have a lot of friends, but you can't have lasting relationships with all of them. So
it depends. That word successful always trips me out because it depends on what you're talking about. Like as far as what you mean financially successful or successful because you got the result you wanted of the thing that I don't know.
Depending on it's the person who's defining it, you know, the end user is making their own definition of that. You know, what is your definition of success? You know, getting so many achievements, a big bank account, whatever. I don't know.
In life.
For me, It's significance, not success.
Mm-hmm.
What did we do that made an impact
mm-hmm.
that's going to outlast you, that's going to help people?
Well, if that's important to you. Again, some people, I don't know, there's really still a lot of people that don't know what they're doing here. So
I was for a long time.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that either. And don't anybody listen, don't beat yourself up because you don't know. You just haven't found it.
We're just telling you that there is. I mean, I feel like you weren't you weren't born for nothing. Like I like to say it like that because it's not just you're a waste.
Yeah. And that's a concern because a lot of people go down that road that Dr. Joyner talks about in his book about suicide, where you have thwarted belongingness and perceived burdensomeness. Those two things, you interlock those, that's a high capability for suicide. You put the other thing in it where they're not afraid of death, like military, fire, police, they even have a higher risk. So if they feel like the world will be a better place without them, and that they don't have a purpose and they're dragging this place down, that's dangerous. That's why I say it's very important for people to feel valued, affirmed, and appreciated, because when they don't, where do they go? You know, they feel lost.
Basic needs. So do you want to, as far as facilitating change, and because we don't really need to have a bitch fest about all the things in leadership or anything like that. I mean, even the little I know, which is a lot to know. What are some things people can do to take action if they just want to, they know they want to change, they know things need to be changed, want to change. I guess it depends on the level of, like, if it's a speaking up, like, I don't know where to begin in asking that, because there's so many things, like, from all your years of experience, what's the baby step if somebody's like, I know, do you address mental health? Do you address mental health is so many things, the toxicity, where's the baby step? What is the baby step? Taking action. How about that? Don't stop blaming people, situations, repressing. Don't think you can't make a difference or change. Like, just actually taking steps, doing something.
You know, you can read, like a friend of mine has a presentation called The Art of Taking Action. And if you look at what people are missing, they try to start with a program or something that's high and mighty, and they don't start with the one thing they can change, which is themselves. You know, if I want to tell people to lose weight and I don't lose weight, then I'm not setting the right example. I tell people to take care of their families and I don't take care of my family, I'm not setting the right example. I have to start with me. The most convicting and powerful thing you can do is try to control and change and influence your own attitudes and actions. Because if you want to change the world, you're the one that's going out and interacting with people. If I tell people to love people and forgive people, and I treat people badly, it doesn't work. You can't say one thing and do it. You can't preach and not practice, is my point. So start with yourself, and it could be a small thing, it could be a big thing. But for me, it was, I had to realize that I got to be who I say I am. And that's going to be a struggle. And that's going to be a lifelong journey. Like, you know, you've seen the signs that say under construction. I feel like that should be hanging around my neck because I'm under construction. I'm under